Night School.
I already said that, bitch.
And I am now saying it.
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
Cesar Milan.
Night School.
Caesar's Way. Night School.
Night School. Dude, I'm fucking stoked to hear about this book. We haven't talked about Cesar Milan in forever, but he's a different cat, man. Or, different guy.
He's a very cool guy, and I'm excited to talk about this too. I like Cesar Milan a lot, and I've owned his book for years now. Like years back, me and Sarah were going to read this book together to like kind of adjust how we were training Jackson at the time. But I never got around to it. But I've been really interested in his sort of take on energy and like reading energy of dogs and projecting your energy and how that I'm interested in. I've always liked dogs, and I'm interested in being able to better communicate with dogs. And I'm also really interested in the way that his conception of energy lines up with sort of psychic ideas.
Right.
Basically with like psychic ideas, because it's very much, it feels a lot like what he's talking about.
Yeah.
So, I'm excited to talk about it. And I first wanted to just give a little bit of the backstory on Cesar, because I didn't remember all of this. Cesar was born in Mexico in like not a remote area, like far away from a city. And he grew up mostly on his grandpa's farm. His grandpa had a lot of different animals there. Mostly it was like a cattle farm. So I guess he was like a cowboy, was what his grandpa was mostly doing. But there was different animals on the farm. And they always had dogs around. And the dogs were not treated as pets the way that we treat dogs as pets. They were just animals that lived around the place. There would be like 8 of them at a time. And it sounds like they didn't even necessarily have names for them. It was just a pack of dogs that they were friends with and that worked with them. And they would just sort of, it's cool to hear him talk about it, but because these dogs would just sort of understand exactly what you were doing. And like one would break off to go with, if a kid was going off somewhere, one would just understand like to go with the kid to go do whatever it was. They just had an intuitive understanding of what all the people were doing and what they could do to contribute. And then sometimes they would throw food out for them too. And so just by being in the proximity of the people, they made themselves useful and got some food out of the situation. And he loved hanging out with the dogs. He would wake up and just for the first thing in the morning, go hang out with the dogs. And he loved watching animals and trying to understand, how are they thinking? What is it that they are? What is it that they are reading? How is it that they understand what we're up to? Not just with dogs, but with all of them. But the dogs were the ones that he felt the closest with. When he was 6 or 7, he got moved to a city so that he could properly go to school. And then Grandpa's farm was somewhere that he would just go on weekends and stuff. But that was what he looked forward to most. So growing up, he always had that tight relationship with those dogs. And he had told his mom when he was like 13 that he wanted to be the best dog trainer in the world.
Wow.
Because he was a big fan of Lassie and a show called Rin Tin Tin, which was about a German Shepherd. And these people would just sort of talk, like Lassie would bark at them. And then they'd be like, "What's that? Oh, Billy's down the well?" And like act like they were talking. And he like believed that at the time. He believed that like, oh, these dogs are so smart that they can like literally talk back and forth. And so he wanted to go to California and be a trainer for like dogs in the movies. That's what he was hoping to do. When he was 21, his dad gave him $100. He really wanted to go to California. So he went to Tijuana with $100 with the intention of basically just hopping the border. And he tried that a bunch of times on his own, wasn't successful. Eventually met a coyote who happened to charge him exactly the amount of money he had. And I didn't mean that to be, I mean, as in, he just genuinely said it'll cost $100. And he didn't, like Cesar had not told him that. So it felt to Cesar like, oh, this is the guy that I'm supposed to go with. So he gets to America, is homeless for quite a while. It sounds like for months. He goes to San Diego, and it sounds like he's not even really tripping about being homeless. He said that he didn't even view it as homelessness. He viewed it as tourism. He's walking around, and yeah, he's sleeping under bridges. But when he gets $1, he can go to AM/PM, and he can get $2. He can get 2 hot dogs for $1, And he's got his Big Gulp, which he can get free refills on anywhere. So he just always carries his Big Gulp around. So he can just get free drinks from, I think it was 7-Eleven. He ended up he learned one phrase in English, and that was, "Do you have application for work?" He walks into a groomer and he asks them, "Do you have application for work?" And they said yes, and then they started like talking to him, and he's like, he didn't understand anything. He had nothing beyond that phrase.
Well, fuck, what did I just get myself into?
But through some sort of communication, they were like, okay, well, let's try. Like, they had actually a dog.
See what you got.
They actually had a dog in the back that whenever they got too close to it, it would like lash out at them. So like, what can you do? Can you groom this? And he does, like, he understands how to approach the dog correctly, and that they were getting in too quickly and were not being respectful of the dog's space. And he's able to easily handle it. So they handle him, or they hire him.
Different times.
They hire this guy that can't speak English, and then it becomes clear to them that he doesn't have a home, but they give him the keys and they just let him sleep there in the dog grooming shop.
That's badass.
After he grooms that dog, it cost $120 to get that dog groomed, and they gave him half of it. They gave him $60.
Holy shit.
And he said that
he was like, "What?"
Yeah, he said that his thought was, why would I need that many hot dogs?
How old is he at this point?
He's 21.
Okay.
Like, why would I need that many hot dogs? And he gave them back. He gave them back 50 of it. He's like, no, I don't need this much.
I only need like 5 hot dogs.
But they gave it.
Or that would be 20 hot dogs. So that's what he was thinking.
Yeah.
20 hot dogs. You can imagine eating more than that.
What? How many hot dogs does a man need? So he gives the money back, and they're like, no, you can, like, you're getting paid. Here's $60. And he then, for the next 3 weeks, he works there for these women that he can't really communicate with. And he ends up making $1,000 in those first few weeks.
Oh, my God.
Someone tips him off that the immigration service is going to come for him. So he skips town and goes to a different place. He talks a lot about how at this time he would see the dogs in America and see like how beautiful they were. They were so nicely groomed, but they were just all crazy. They're all really unbalanced and unhealthy in the way that they're thinking. He would watch walks and see like just people getting pulled on flexi leashes that are 20 feet out by dogs that are running wherever they want to, and dogs that are all like nervous and skittish and things like that. He said that all the dogs in Mexico looked in like extremely skinny and unhealthy, but they're all cool and balanced. But all the dogs in America, they're fat and beautiful, but they're all out of whack.
That is hilarious.
Yeah.
Exactly like the people.
Right. A lot of the stuff that I read in here, it did make me think like, oh, is this just all like advice for people too? Like, this is probably the same roots of issues that the dogs have are the same roots of the issues that humans are having too.
Right.
So he ends up leaving town. I think he goes to LA. He gets a job at a different groomer, and then eventually gets introduced to a guy who was a grooming customer that hires him to be a car washer just because he likes this young man's chutzpah, and he makes him a car washer. He's given a van to use as his work van, which he then starts on the side, like dog business, where he's grooming.
He grabs a Sharpie and he writes dog on the side of that thing. He fucking looks it up.
It said like Pacific Coast Pups or something like that. Like
That's not bad.
He came up with a business card and wrote a thing on the side of it and started doing a little business. The guy that owned this car washing business was a rich and connected guy, and would start like with all of his rich friends. He would say like, I got this Mexican guy. He's great with dogs. Just bring the dog over and he'll tell you what to do.
Right.
So then he just started getting introduced to this guy's buddies. One day he gets introduced to Jada Pinkett Smith, who's one of this guy's friends. He becomes close friends with Jada Pinkett Smith. She even writes a foreword in this book.
Oh, that's cool.
Because she's very close with them, and he meets Will and the whole family, and they have a bunch of Rottweilers that Jay Leno gave them that are not behaving correctly, and he teaches them how to properly raise dogs, becomes real tight with them. Jada Pinkett Smith is actually the reason he can speak English. He told her that he wanted to He told her that like he dreams of maybe someday having a show where he can do like dog training stuff. And she says, well, in order to do that, you're going to need to speak English. And then the next day she hired him a tutor. And so Jada Pinkett Smith paid to have Cesar Milan taught English so that he could have a show eventually. So he starts doing dog walking. He said that sometimes he would just walk up to people who had Rottweilers and be like, would you like me to walk your dog for $10? And they would oftentimes agree to it. And so then he just started walking dogs, and it's in, I think he said it was South Central LA, like a sort of ghetto area. And he would just start walking dogs for $10 a piece.
He'd collect dogs as he went.
Yeah.
He snowballed a pile of dogs.
Yeah. So this guy was every day, a couple times, running through LA with a pack of 30 dogs off leash, and he's making $10 per dog.
Dude.
So he's got a pack of Rottweilers, German Shepherds, Pit Bulls, and they are all just in sync with him. And so he's just running down the street with a herd of dogs behind him.
Holy shit.
Just making bank doing that.
That would be extremely intimidating to see.
For sure.
A pack of well-behaved dogs is like,
sure.
That guy could kill a crowd of people with those dogs.
My God. Yeah, if you were to weaponize that. I did think about that a little bit. Like, what about like an evil Cesar Milan? Like, a real monster that is just a hound master with a shitload of dogs.
He climbs the border into Mexico just to find a bunch of cheap dogs. He goes the opposite way. An American goes to Mexico, collects a bunch of cheap dogs, and then just has them start attacking people.
Yeah. Goes out into the desert, gets a bunch of coyotes. And yeah, a lot of people did find it very intimidating, but it was in an area where he could get away with it because there wasn't a lot of police presence anyway.
Right.
And this did start getting attention. People did start talking about that crazy Mexican dude that runs with a pack of 30 dogs every day. Eventually, someone from I can't remember what the paper was, but someone from a big newspaper came and they basically said, I want to follow you for 3 days. I want to see everything you do from the moment you wake up to when you go to bed at night. Like, you're just such an interesting character. Right. What are you doing?
Right.
They do it, and he loves the article. It comes out really nicely, and they ask him in it, like, what's next for you? What else would you want to do? And he says that he would like to have a radio show or a TV show where he can, like, give his advice that he knows about how to handle dogs. The day after the article came out, he had tons of producers outside his house like, tell us about the show. What is it that you want to do exactly? Like, a bunch of people are banging on his door because they're like, yeah, that's a show. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Good for him. What a guy.
So
he's then has the leverage to not only get a show, but describe exactly the show that he wants to do then take his pick.
For sure. And he said that Jada Pinkett Smith was like also a lot of help with helping him understand the business.
Yeah, like, you don't want to work with that guy.
Sure, yeah. But he did end up getting fucked, actually.
Oh,
he
really?
did end up like accidentally signing his life rights over a little bit. And like five years later, after his show Dog Whisperer was done, he realized like he had no money, that they owned everything, that he couldn't see the books. So he ended up being bankrupt pretty far into his career, like after he was already famous.
Wow.
But when he talks about that, he talks about it in a very like, I've been poor before. It didn't really matter that much. I had made money before. I'll make money again. It's no big deal. I still got my dogs, whatever. Right. Yeah, so that was how he came to get his show Dog Whisperer, and that's how everybody knows of him.
So through the course of making Dog Whisperer, like in that same time period, he also dropped his first book?
Yep, I believe, because I think he referred to up to the 3rd season of Dog Whisperer in this book. So it was a few years into him kind of being famous for his show on National Geographic. Yeah,
cool.
It was when he came out with this first book, although he's got like 6 or 7 now.
Hey, just a side note real quick. You're doing a really good job with your levels being consistent.
Nice. So there's a few quotes from the book. He's really funny in a lot of cases in this book in the way that he talks about what people think, the like things that people project onto dogs. And he's very like, he made me laugh a lot in the way he was kind of mocking what people say about dogs. And it's so often like stuff that I have heard people say a lot. Like, often a baffled owner will say, the problem is she thinks she's a person. No, she doesn't. I promise you, your dog knows full well that she's a dog. The problem is you don't know that. There's lots of like kind of funny little remarks like that sort of poke fun at the things that we think. I can't count the number of times someone who has read too many books on dog breeds will say, well, because she's a Dalmatian, she's naturally nervous. Or he's part border collie, part pit bull, and it's the pit bull part that's the problem. Or dachshunds are always a problem breed. Lots of stuff like that. And I'll save that last quote for later. So a lot of what Cesar Milan talks about is that what dogs really want is to be a part of a healthy pack. They don't care that much if they are following in the pack. They're okay. Some dogs are meant to lead. Some dogs are more comfortable being a follower anyway. But they're all cool being a follower if they have someone that is a strong leader. Something that stuck with me was the idea that when dogs don't see a strong leader in their household, when it doesn't seem like anyone's got their shit together or knows like what it is we're doing here exactly, that they'll look around and be like, okay, there's no one, so I guess it's me. I guess I'm the best leader here.
Right.
And so then these dogs start getting it in their head that like they're the boss, because it seems like everybody goes, oh, boo, 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 to me. Everybody comes up to me and just showers me with attention and affection. So I must be the boss. A lot of what I've been thinking about in reading this book is just almost all the weird behaviors that you see from dogs, that like anxiety and fear and overexcitedness, jumping up, and even like peeing in the house and ripping shit up. It all almost comes from just not getting exercise. They just all have pent up energy. And so all this, like, he's just a naturally nervous dog, or like, I don't understand why he keeps jumping up and all that. It's like, cause well, did you ever walk him? Does he ever leave the house? Or is he just like a piece of furniture that hangs out here?
Right.
And then sometimes you let him outside and go like, oh, well, he sometimes gets zoomies in the yard. So he
zoomies in the yard.
He gets his exercise in the yard. He even talked about how like even like that is not good exercise. Don't let them just out in the yard like that. Dogs need a job. Dogs want something productive to do, and they want you to tell them what it is that is. He does point out that like a lot of the things that we initially trained dogs for, that we like taught them how to do, they're not relevant to our current modern lives.
Right.
And so the closest thing that you can do in order to make them feel like they have a job is to be walking them, is to go on walks with them. And the walks are not like, I take my dogs. I have 2 dogs. I have Jackson. He's God, I can't even remember. I can never remember the kind of something terrier.
Oh, I know, right? He's so weird. Staffordshire, probably.
That's it. Yep. Staffordshire
but
terrier,
with some
mostly.
weird mix.
He's got some other stuff in him. He's got wiry hair, but he's a big boy, 70 pounds. And then I've got Bandit. He's 20 pounds, but he should be 10. And he's a Chihuahua Pomeranian mix. And I also used to have a border collie. He was like our childhood dog, Homer.
Best dog ever.
So I was thinking a lot about all those dogs as I was reading this, and thinking about how I could implement some of these things into my relationship with Jackson and Bandit in order to make them better.
We did a good job with Homer. We did the best job with Homer. Jackson and Bandit, it's been harder to implement an active lifestyle for them that gives them a sense of purpose. But Homer, he always wanted to play fetch. It made him feel very purposeful to play fetch. And we would get the chuck it, is that what it was called? Mm-hmm. Where it would launch the ball twice as far as you could throw it with your arm without even straining. It would just fly.
Yeah.
And he'd be so happy. And you could tell that he was not just he wasn't selfishly excited to play a game. He was excited at the opportunity to serve you. he's like, yeah, bro, you feed me and are cool to me. Like, I want to do something for you. Like, oh yeah, now it's my turn to do something for you. And it was so cute because we were doing nothing. It's like,
right. And I would have agreed with you a week ago, but it sort of addressed that like ball fixation in this book, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And I think we did a lot of things well with Homer, but apparently, according to Caesar, if a dog is like obsessed with the frisbee or obsessed with the ball or just fixated on anything, that he pointed out that like he thinks it's ridiculous that people think that that is good or cute or fun. It's not like a good personality trait. It's not something that the dog loves doing. It's a fixation that they are. It's like what they're doing because they're not getting the correct exercise. It's like it's their energy. It's their pent up energy coming out in the same way that it would be if they were jumping up on someone, or like Caesar considers it a bad behavior that is as a result of the fact that they are not being satisfied by migrating with you like they usually would, going out, walking around in the world to get food and water and being with the pack. Instead, their energy's all pent up, and Homer being like staring fixated at the ball was not a good thing.
Interesting.
It was an unhealthy fixation, an addiction for him that was more harmful than good. And yeah, we did get some energy out that way, but it wasn't apparently in a good way, according to Caesar.
Right. It's like a person being fixated on any one behavior to try to meet their needs that they should be meeting from a variety of
right. Yeah.
things.
He brought up even like he related it to someone that is a drug addict or someone who is playing slot machines incessantly, that it's not good that they're doing that all the time.
Wow.
It's an unhealthy behavior because they're not getting more properly stimulating exercise.
Right.
Which did make me feel a bit bad in retrospect. Like
yeah, bummer.
I felt the same way. Like we were doing what he needed. He wanted to get exercise, and it felt like work for him. And you know, it could also be that Caesar's wrong about something. It could be that it's different for different dogs, because that's how I felt at the time. But yeah,
no, but he was obsessive. I didn't even think about that being
a very fixated on it. It was never done.
Fixated is 100% the right word. So yeah, that was a misstep on our part. Very interesting.
Yeah. I think the biggest rule that Caesar talks about is that dogs need 3 things in order to be successful, healthy, balanced. They need exercise, discipline, affection, in that order. So what he says is you need to be getting their energy out by exercising with them. And Caesar, when he's taking his dogs, it's 2-hour walks, it's 4-hour walks, it's runs with them on rollerblades. It's like he's going for hours and hours. And he said at the very bare minimum, if you cannot absolutely do anything else, half-hour walks twice a day.
Wow.
Which I don't know anyone that's doing that.
Wow.
So it just makes me think about like every dog I know
is crazy.
Right. Because they're not.
The only people pulling that off are doing the bicycle deal, but even then, they probably usually aren't. And what did he say about dogs running around on sidewalk?
What do you mean?
If it's bad for their paws or anything.
Didn't mention that at all. I don't think that's the case.
Cool. Only if it's really hot, I think.
I've heard that. Yeah. Like, I mean, like black asphalt gets pretty rough when it's 110 or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. But he didn't go into that at all.
Cool.
But yeah, apparently everybody needs to be walking their dogs at least an hour every day.
Wow.
Or else they're going to have too much energy. And like when I think through it, it's like, yeah, all the dogs I know, they do exhibit the symptoms of having too much energy, of like jumping up, and like Jackson will spin in circles. He'll just, if he thinks there's a chance that a walk is going to happen soon, he'll start just spinning in circles.
Mm-hmm.
And I've noticed that Jackson doesn't like to eat. Now that we've got in the rhythm of going for walks almost every day, but they're only 10, 15-minute walks once a day at night. He doesn't even want to eat until after we've gone on the walk now. And that very much resonates with what Caesar is saying, because they want to have earned their food if they can. They feel much better about that if they've actually earned their food by being with you and doing what you want to do, which you should treat the walk like it is something they're doing for you, something they're accompanying you on, not something. It feels like a lot of people view walks as like a little sniff and pee adventure for their dog. Just, it will take you around and you can pull me wherever and sniff what you want, and you can pee on a couple things, and then I take you home. And it shouldn't be like that. It should be like you are migrating with this dog. You're walking swiftly somewhere. And yeah, you can stop and tell them it is now, you can let them off and like tell them it's okay. You can have a little bit of freedom, but stay close. But when you are walking, they should be walking with you, and you shouldn't be like letting them decide where you stop or anything like that. You're the leader of the walk, and they need to come with you.
What insights did he offer about how to put a dog so in check that you don't even have to pull a leash or whatever? You just, it'll come right next to you. It's not really a training manual kind of book.
He actually says that he does not consider himself a dog trainer at all. That what he considers himself is a human trainer who helps rehabilitate dogs. Because so often the problem is not this dog needs to know the heel command. The problem is this dog needs to be in what he refers to as a calm, submissive state, and their leader needs to be in a calm, assertive state. So when people want them to like fix his relationship with their dog, the truth is that mostly the human needs to change. Mostly the human needs to learn how to be constantly projecting calm and assertive energy, and that the dog will pick up on that, and that the dog wants to follow that calm, assertive energy where it sees it. If it sees you being unsure, like it takes that as weakness. It makes it look like you are not a competent leader. He talks a lot about how when you do, like if you are going to do this properly, it's a responsibility for you to be the leader. Like it's a responsibility for your dog's sake for you to always have your shit together and to always be calm and assertive whenever you're around the dogs. Right. Because otherwise it makes them uneasy because the person that is leading this doesn't know where they're going.
Right.
They don't know what the plan is. And so you need to be always on the ball. So in order to make the dogs able to stay where they should be, like at your heel when you're going for a walk, you just need to develop a relationship with them where they know you are calm and assertive, and therefore they are happy to be calm and submissive. And he also talks a lot about how submissive has become such a dirty word, and that it's not that to a dog at all. It's not like you are humiliating this dog or anything like that by making them be submissive to you. They can't be your equal. You can't be equals with your dog. You need to be the boss, and that's what they want. And they don't, people act as though if you are the boss of your dog, that's somehow like bad for their self-esteem or something. They don't care about their self-esteem. They care about the pack. They care about making sure that this family is functioning correctly. Right. And they're okay with that being humans or with that being dogs. Or he even says like they're even fine being with other herd animals. If there's other like pack animals, like he said, if you take a cow and an elephant and a dog and you start walking with them, like you become a family. Like they will act as though they are a pack together because they share that same sort of trait of being with the group and making sure that there is a pecking order that is stable.
Right. And
they're okay with being with other creatures as long as they're on the same page with that. He also says that they all share that same sort of energy communication, which this energy communication that he's talking about, it sounds like it's just psychic overlap between auras or something like that. He very much talks about how you need to project this energy out, and if you're aware of it, you can be more willfully pushing that out. And dogs always know if you're full of shit. If you're not really calm and assertive and you're just kind of like trying to make it physically look that way, they'll pick up on it. It doesn't work.
Wow.
There was a little bit about energy that I wanted to read here.
You know, that reminds me of the possibility that dogs are man's best friend because they keep us psychically attuned.
Right. Like, a lot of this sounds so much like he thinks that dogs are, and he doesn't use these words because he wants to be careful about how he's presenting it, although I know that he is very comfortable with the idea, like God. He believes in God, and
ESP and stuff like that.
I would say he believes in ESP. Yeah, I mean, if he believes in this sort of energy communication, he does. But I think he thinks that that dogs are more in tune with God, that they are just in tune with nature and the way things work. And something he likes to quote a lot was what his grandpa always said. His grandpa is the person that he credits most with making him understand how to communicate with dogs. And his grandpa always said that you have to work with nature. That's the only way that you'll succeed. That you have to go with the flow of nature. You can't try and fight against it or control it.
Right.
The energy quote was, all animals communicate using energy constantly. Energy is beingness. Energy is who you are and what you are doing at any given moment. That's how animals see you. That's how your dog sees you. Your energy in that present moment defines who you are. So he talks a lot about how dogs are in the moment, they're in the now. So much of what he said is almost exactly what Eckhart Tolle said in The Power of Now. He said dogs do not dwell on shit. They're not worried. They're here now, and they don't even, it sounds like he thinks they don't even really judge you for things that you've done in the past. They just, if you are calm and assertive now, we're good. Like that's what they need from you, and they only care about what's going on now.
Right.
And he seems to very much like take on a lot of that from dogs. He seems to think, I think he would say that most of the way that he carries himself is based on trying to understand the natural way that an animal like us or like dogs would carry themselves. So he watches dogs and seems to act more like them. His first wife did not like dogs, but they got pregnant too early, and they ended up getting married and trying to make it work, despite the fact that the whole time she didn't like dogs. Meanwhile, he has 65 dogs at his dog psychology center, most of which he brings home every night. So that's a very funny story. And when people try to ask him about that in interviews, like, so what was it like having a wife that didn't even like dogs? And he's like, I don't want to talk about that. He's like, I just don't, yeah, it wasn't a good idea, but I don't want to. He's like, he doesn't even want to say her name or anything. He just doesn't want to dwell on it. And it feels very much like him.
The dogs taught him to conduct himself that way.
Yeah. And
that's really cool.
He talks a lot about how dogs are the ones that like helped him through his divorce. Just like, you got to let go of that shit. It's fine. Move on. What matters is what's going on now.
Right. And there, to reference that was our last episode. The one right before that or right after, whatever, 7 Spiritual Laws of Success, talked a lot about the necessity of working with nature. That when you're in harmony with the basic laws of nature, life unfolds in a good way for you, and when you're not, it tends not to, or it's at least more difficult. And so he's like presenting a method of aligning yourself with natural law, which is follow the dogs. Like they're a lot closer to natural law than you are, so follow them. Yeah. And it's so like it just made me think about, this is just yet another route to the same kind of ultimate answer. Right. Like it feels like there is some sort of enlightenment or some sort of like answer to what the correct way to live is. And a lot of things just lead back to be in the present. Don't trip about the past. Don't worry about the future. Be here now. Mm-hmm. And this is just another route to get to that same point. Like, watch the dogs. What do the dogs do? The dogs be here now. Wah. Right. Yeah. That's dope. Greeting a dog correctly. Actually, before that, what Cesar says your name is to a dog is your smell and your energy. The most important sense to a dog is smell, and that is how they know who you are. You said scent? You mean, sense. Sense, yeah. Oh, I said scent. No, okay. Most important scent is smell. Cesar often says of dogs, you need to remember nose, eyes, ears. When a dog is first born, its eyes are not opened, its ears are not, like the canals are not even opened. So when it comes out, it's just smell and touch and taste. So that's how it's first introduced to its mother. Its mother is just a smell and a touch. And then 2 weeks in, eyes open, and then they can see. And then 3 weeks after that, then they finally start hearing. So
eyes and ears are something that is much less fundamental to a dog, and the smell is what really matters a lot. The correct way to greet a dog, Cesar says that when you meet a dog, don't touch it, don't talk to it, don't make eye contact with it, which is so hard. Like, eye contact and touch, I feel like I struggle most with talk. I can't help but like at least acknowledge the dog in some way. But he says that, yeah, basically when you like walk into a house, you let the dog come up to you, you let it smell you, you don't touch it until it like nuzzles you, like it wants you to pet it. And that it's really basically like we're very disrespectful in the way that we approach dogs. We are not learning their culture and the way that they communicate with each other. Because when you see dogs, it's when one of them runs up to the other one, it's clear that that's rude. You know what I mean? Like
absolutely.
It's clear that when that dog runs up, the other one's like it's kind of taken aback by it and stiffens up.
When they make friends with each other, they tend to circle each other. They have kind of an indirect greeting.
Right. They sort of approach each other a little bit diagonally and kind of spin around each other and sniff each other. And it's sort of a slow process. And when a dog is unbalanced and is like gets really excited and runs up to another dog, that oftentimes can like result in a fight or just general tension, growling, whatever. But in order to properly approach a dog, like, because we do that every time. Whenever we see, not me specifically, but most people, when they see a dog, they're like, oh, boo, 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 and they want to get down in his face and like, oh, it's like I just met you. I don't know you. I haven't even smelled you yet.
Yeah.
And now you want to get in my face and like rub my face.
Right.
And
it's like diving onto a person and kissing them, huh?
Right. Yeah. We're really like invading their space and like oftentimes kind of approaching from the top where they can't even see you. So like you know when you pet a dog and they're like sort of
they go, what the hell?
And they just
they do.
They cringe away. You're like coming at them from where they can't see. You're coming at them from their blind spot because you want to get a pet in the most convenient way. And it just occurs to me that like, we're very rude to their culture. We're very disrespectful to their culture in the way that we approach them. I was thinking about it and like the person that like of all my friends, the only one I can think of that like treats dogs the most properly is the one that likes dogs the least. Our friend Juice, he like is not into dogs, and like when he enters a situation, he doesn't usually shoo them away. Like he'll let them kind of walk around him, but he doesn't really acknowledge them. And so he's probably, despite not really liking them, the most respectful to them of anyone.
Right. That's interesting.
By just kind of letting them approach, because they don't generally need pets, but they're open to it in some cases.
But just to play devil's advocate, we are, through this process of what we're doing right now, learning how to communicate with dogs on their terms. But we are the evolutionary mentors to them. We're leveling them up, not the other way around. We're teaching them how to be more civilized and everything. And so it also does make sense to expect them to learn to communicate on our terms. And if we can stoop to their level, if we can get these evolutionary peasants, but if we can like get down on their level and communicate better with them and meet them halfway, that's a beautiful thing. But it also is like, hey, what we do is look each other directly in the face. Yeah. And like this is how we operate and this is how we interact with you. So I'm sure they're getting more used to it over as the generations go on, right? I mean, you can't walk up to a wolf and grab their face.
Right. Yeah, that's pretty true. Although it's hard to say, like, because we are probably asking them to bend so much more than even following Caesar's way. We're still asking them to bend so much into this like bizarre world that we've created in the last 100 years. Like we're asking a lot of them, and we are the smarter ones. We're the ones that can understand. We're the ones that can understand the differences in our cultures and try to bridge that gap as much as we can. But it's clear that we're asking too much of them right now.
Because they're crazy.
Because they're all crazy.
Right.
And none of them are going on walks.
Wow. That's so weird.
Yeah.
You know, I've always commented that people in the city have dogs that, like, I mean, if you open the door, they'll just run away. And in the country, you see dogs just sitting in front yards.
Right.
they're just chilling. Like, oh,
Yeah.
this is where I go. Like, I know this spot. I know these people. This is my place. And in the city, like, or in a lot of apartments or something, you know, or even in the suburbs,
Yeah.
it's like, oh, don't let the dog out. Like, what kind of relationship do you have with this animal?
You don't own that dog.
Yeah,
That's
that's
not your dog.
That's not your dog.
If your dog
just in
wants
your
to leave,
house.
it's not yours.
Right.
And yeah, that must just be because they want to fucking go somewhere.
Yeah, and
They
they
don't go anywhere.
90% of the time, if they don't get lost, they'll just run out and then go back home after a while.
Yeah.
They'll probably run around for an hour
Yeah,
and then come back home.
totally.
And then if they do get out, then the humans will like chase them. Like, it's like, well, they're going to run around and come back. But they're like, no, we need to
Right.
chase them and we need to get them into the car and get them back right away, which makes sense because you don't want them to get hit by something.
Right.
But
Yeah, that's usually what it is.
yeah. But still, that's so funny how far we've gone, how far we have strayed from the organic relationship with dogs that we must have had
Mm-hmm.
for us to become like evolutionary buddies with dogs. Like,
Yeah.
oh, you scratch our backs and we scratch yours. You help us hunt. We share the food. We must have had good communication with dogs, like borderline direct communication with
Definitely.
them to be able to figure all that out. And now we've gotten to a place where we don't even talk to them. They're just around.
Right. And that like just happened. Like it
Just happened. Yeah.
just
yeah.
now.
Do you know how long we've had how long humans have had a relationship with dogs?
I can't imagine it's much less than the amount that we've both existed. You know?
Because they might have even had something to do with our
I just imagine that
success.
it would be I just imagine that it would be such a natural thing that would happen. Like that the dogs would be kind of coming around, that they would get close to the fire, and that it would just be such a natural thing for them to be near us and in order to get some free food. It feels like such a natural relationship that it must have happened so quick
Right.
as soon as there was something like a dog.
Yeah. The relationship with cats is a little more mysterious to me.
Sure.
That's another podcast.
Yeah, they are a much more solitary thing.
Mm-hmm.
They are not the same kind of pack creature that dogs are,
Right.
but they're cool too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, when you pick out a dog, Caesar thinks that the breed matters very little. What the breed does is it changes some of the like powers or abilities that a dog has. It like focuses some of those traits, or focuses just sort of visual things. But when you're picking out a dog, the thing that actually matters the most is their energy level. So when you're like looking at puppies or looking at dogs at the pound, pay attention to, first off, be honest with yourself about your energy level. About like,
Right.
Am I a low energy person or a medium energy person or like a really hyperactive person? And then you need to try and find a dog that is going to vibe with you and with how much exercise you're going to be willing to give it.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're someone who is going to be lazy and isn't likely to do a lot, don't go for the dog that's jumping up and down, which is often how it goes.
Because they get the attention.
Because people end up picking out the dog that's like, oh, he was jumping up at me and he was just like so excited to see me. It's like, well, you've got the one that's most likely to be aggressive, the one that's most likely to want to be a leader, and the one that's going to need the most energy drained by going on walks with you. And oftentimes those people are not really thinking about that. They're just
Right.
thinking about,
Because
oh,
if they're
he
the
was
type
cute
to
one.
if they're the type to choose a dog based on such a foolish criteria, they're maybe the least likely to actually take the dogs on walks.
Yeah.
Because it's like, what do you know about dogs if you grabbed that one?
Yeah.
Which I'm in that category. That's not a them, but
Yeah. Let me read you his list of things that you need to say yes to before you should take on a dog. You need to be able to agree to all of these things before you should take on a dog. 1, am I committed to walking my dog for at least 1.5 hours every day, or will I simply let the dog out in the backyard and rationalize that he is getting plenty of outdoor exercise? Am I committed to learning how to become a calm, assertive pack leader with my dog, or will I let my dog walk all over me because it's easier? Am I committed to setting clear rules, boundaries, and limitations in my household, or will I let my dog do anything he wants whenever he wants? Am I committed to providing regular food and water for my dog? Am I committed to giving affection only at appropriate times and when my dog is calm, submissive? Or will I hug and kiss the dog when he's fearful or aggressive and whenever the mood strikes me? Will I commit to taking my dog to the veterinarian on a regular basis, making sure he is spayed and neutered and has all his proper checkups and shots? Will I make sure my dog is socialized and or trained properly so he is never a danger to other animals or people? Am I willing to clean up after my dog whenever I walk him? Am I willing to educate myself on dog psychology in general and any specific needs my dog's breed has in particular? Am I willing to put some money away in case I have to call in a professional for a behavior problem or rush to the vet for a medical emergency? So you need to be able to say yes to all 10 of those things if you want to have a dog, according to Cesar.
Wow.
And that's a lot.
So nobody who has a dog should have a dog.
Yeah.
Wow.
Unless you actually have a job for that dog to do.
Right.
Or if you're Cesar
That's the
Milan.
best situation, yeah.
Yeah. If you've got something that they're actually meant to do.
Well,
that's
there for sure are people who really go run a 5K every day with their dog.
Yeah.
But apparently that's not enough because that's 30 minutes.
You need to do it twice a day. Yeah. He mentioned affection in one of those rules there. He thinks that people are much too generous about affection. Like I said, you need exercise, discipline, and affection in that order. So you exercise them first, and you make sure that they have clear rules in your life, and make sure that you are the person make sure they understand that you are the person that's in charge. You're the leader of the pack. And after they are disciplined and they're behaving well and they've been exercised, that is the appropriate time to show them affection. He says, when you come home from work, you should not even make a big deal about it. Don't even acknowledge them directly immediately. Just go about your day like nothing is really happening. When you leave for the day, don't go, oh, boo, 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 boo. I'll see you later, buddy. He doesn't even think you should give them affection then. This one is insane, and he acknowledges, I understand that this is truly impossible for some people. But he says when you get a puppy, you should hold off on giving it affection for a week or two. Which, I mean, who could ever do that?
This guy just went from sounding like a guru to a sociopath.
But he does say, which I understand is completely impossible for some people. But if you absolutely must, at least try and wait till after you've taken them for a walk. He even says that you should...
Wow.
That when you take the dog home for the first time, you should walk it around the neighborhood for hours so that it understands where it is, and then bring it into the house. And the rest of the family should not acknowledge it directly. They should not talk to it, touch it, or look it in the eyes until it approaches them first.
Wow.
So some of this advice, although it feels...
Man, that's so cool. It's so cool how counterintuitive good dog care is, because it's about what the dog is experiencing. It's not about us.
Right. That's so much of what his point is, that we are treating these dogs like accessories. He shits on Paris Hilton a lot for her, I can't remember what it's called, but her little chihuahua that she keeps.
Teacup?
Yeah. Or no, I can't remember what the dog's actual name is.
Oh, okay.
But about how ridiculous that is. It's this dog is having an insane life right now. It never exercises, lives in a purse. And it's
right.
And she's not the only one doing that. Most people are having dogs for some sort of superficial reason so that they can feel like they have a kid, or they can have a friend.
Imagine seeing just a naked, scrawny, manic human being being dragged around by an extraterrestrial. That would be so fucking horrifying.
Yeah.
That's really what's going on with a lot of dogs.
Yeah, so we're being really selfish to them, and we're asking, what can a dog do for me, and not thinking about what is this dog's life like, and
right?
What should I be doing for it so that it can actually be healthy?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people will say, my dog gets freaked. One example he gave was, my dog always freaks out when he sees high heels. Someone must have been abusing him with high heels, or my dog doesn't like men. I think he was abused in the past.
Yeah, definitely heard all. No, not the high heels one, but yeah.
But people project those sort of things onto dogs, and they use those, according to Cesar, they use those as excuses when if your dog sort of is hyperactive and anxious and cowers in weird ways, you can go oh, this dog this dog must have been abused. Like this dog was abused in some way.
Because that way you're not a neglectful pet owner. You're a hero.
Right. You're rescuing this dog.
Right.
But the thing is, your dog is not dwelling on shit. Your dog is not thinking about that person. Yes, the dog's behavior may be based on the things that have happened to them in the past. So if a dog is beaten, yeah, it can have that residual effect. But that effect can be easily corrected. Your dog will forget that shit real quick. It doesn't even remember why it is the way it is. It just is the way it is. And you can correct that state and you can correct that phobia and it goes away.
So it only needs to have the symptoms treated by a change in environment and it all goes away.
Right. If it feels comfortable in its pack and that its pack is functioning correctly, those things go away. Your dog will not think about the lady that stepped on it with high heels or whatever. It doesn't dwell on that in the same way that we do.
Right.
He talked about the power broker paradox. This is what he refers to as like rich and powerful people will often. He talks about Oprah. He met Oprah, and Oprah, he says, is someone who on her show is absolutely calm, assertive. She's very poised. She stands up straight. She commands the room. She's respectful. She like feels like a really strong leader. Yet when he would see her around her dogs, she would just be like pathetic and just kind of let them get away with shit. She had a dog that would be really aggressive with other dogs. If it saw like other dogs in the street or whatever, it would just start barking and pulling towards that dog and be really aggressive. And then what she would do is be like, "Oh, I'm so sorry, baby. Oh, calm down, calm down. It's okay, it's okay." But you're giving affection to a dog that just was being aggressive to these other dogs. So you're saying, yeah, it was good that you were aggressive, and here's pats for it.
Oh, keep it up.
So she's just letting these dogs kind of do whatever and praising them for it as though it's cute, or she feels sorry for it or something.
Right, because she's really just stroking her own ego by feeling like she's soothing something distressed. And that's not even what's going on.
Right, and he also thinks that certain powerful people kind of want to be dominated a little bit, which is like what you hear about like people that are like into dominatrixes are often like powerful people that are at the tops of their company or whatever.
Right.
That there's something about being in control all the time that they don't necessarily like, that they want to be bossed around a little bit in another part of their life.
Have you ever heard of the book Sexual Profiles of Powerful Men?
No.
Dude, a journalist got a hold of a bunch of prostitutes who served powerful men and wrote a crazy book about the shit they were into.
Yeah.
Really, it'd be a really interesting one to do.
Yeah. So yeah, these people will just like want to, it's probably like they want to turn it off. Like it's because it is the idea of being a pack leader 24/7 is a bit stressful because you have to remain poised and you can't ever like let yourself turn that off.
Right.
And so people that are like bossing people around at work, they want to just sort of go home and be like, "Oh, hey, hey, why don't you lay with me?" And they don't realize it, but they're getting bossed around by their dogs.
Yeah.
Or they do realize it. It's hard to say.
Yeah.
Oprah was offended at the suggestion that she needed to be calm and assertive and that she was not showing that she was the boss of this dog. She was offended at that, but eventually came to agree with him. And they did a whole segment on the show about him, on Oprah's show, about him training her.
Very
He
cool.
doesn't train dogs. He trains people and he rehabilitates dogs.
Good for her, letting herself like
Yeah.
get roasted and learn that lesson publicly. That's pretty cool.
For sure. Yeah. I just had something, but I lost it. He does say you should never give any affection during any negative emotion, which is kind of what we were just talking about. If your dog is being aggressive, don't try and calm them down in like a soothing way. Don't be like, "Oh, it's okay. Relax. Like that's not the way to do it. Instead, you criticize that in some way. You tell them no, or he says that like you can pretty much just at this point he can just do it with like a look or with like any sort of word towards a dog. That if you are being calm and assertive, it doesn't take much in order to correct a dog. And he does do that thing. Do you ever see the South Park episode where Cesar Milan, like, he does it to Cartman?
Yeah.
Like, that's a little thing he does where he says, like, basically just hold your hand out, but kind of cup it a little bit and just sort of like touch dogs on the neck and it triggers like the same thing. It's the same kind of correction that other dogs use in a pack. Is just like a little nip on the neck. When one example he gave, and he actually had like pictures in the book of it, was one dog that was just like fixated on its own shadow, and then the other dog sort of like bit it on the neck, but just a little nip, and not like attacked him, but like, hey, you're tripping, dude. You're staring at your shadow. This is crazy.
That's awesome.
So they just use those sort of like little things to snap each other out of it if they're being insane.
Right.
Because they can't have that, because the pack is going to fall apart if they've got insane people in it.
Right.
Yeah. Hyper is not a personality trait of your dogs. Hyper means that they're not getting enough exercise. If they're jumping up, or if they're always just like always up in your face, like they need to run more. Everything is basically they need to move more. That's almost everything. You should never let your dog jump up on people. Don't let it jump up on you. Don't let it jump up on people that enter your house. It's always a dominance thing that they're doing. People will say that their dog chews their shoes up or chews their things up, and people will phrase that as like, my dog gets mad that I left it, or my dog has separation anxiety and it just misses me so much that it just loses its mind. And he says that no, it's that they need more exercise. If they're chewing shoes, it means that they are bored, and then they realize something smelled like you, and when they smelled you, they got excited, and then they just started tearing into the thing because they just needed something to do. It's not that it's not
because they don't have the continuity of memory to think they were there and now they're not there. I wish they were still there.
Yeah, people treat it like I've heard many people say that they think the dog is punishing them or is like getting back at them in some way. That's not what it is. The dog's tripping because it's got too much pent up energy, and it smelled you and then just kind of freaked out and started going for it. They're not punishing you. They don't have that sort of thought.
Mm-hmm.
He says you should be careful when playing Tug of War with a dog before you've like clearly given them rules and boundaries that they follow, and that they like when you've given them proper discipline and they understand that you can tell them to stop at any time, then it's okay to play Tug of War. But if they are not properly disciplined, if they are not confident that you are the confident leader, then Tug of War ends up being more of a game
to determine the leader.
Yeah. So you need to make sure that you are actually the boss before you play Tug of War with a dog. And he doesn't mention this, but I think he's mentioned this in other places, but you probably shouldn't let them win all the time, because if they win all the time, then that's going to make them start thinking they're the boss.
How often should you let them win?
Well, we heard that thing once that was 70%, but I can't remember where that number came from.
Well, that was about rats.
Right, that was a rat.
Who was it that said that? Oh, who was that? Peterson who? Yeah, because we can't go an episode. He said that bigger rats, when they're wrestling with little rats, will let them win a third of the time. Otherwise, the little rats will just stop playing. It's like, oh, this isn't even a game.
Right.
So that's the rule that I started using with dogs when I played Tug of War. Let them win a third of the time.
Yeah.
But I don't know if it translates.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure if it applies, so don't quote me on that, guys. When you're walking a dog, don't ever let it be in front. Don't let it go out the door first. Don't put the leash on it until it's in a calm, submissive state. I did think a lot about Jackson and Bandit as I was reading the walking stuff, because there are a lot of things that I do that are wrong with it. For example, I'll tell Jackson, like, you want to go for a walk? And then he goes, he like perks up and he gets all excited, and then he starts spinning in circles, and I end up hyping him up. I think as a way to like get me up to do it. Like, you want to go for a walk, and then he gets excited, and now I have to go do it. But because of that, he often ends up pulling at the beginning of a walk. Like, it's always like halfway through the walk before I finally get him in line where he's not trying to pull ahead of me and stuff. And that's definitely partly because I'm hyping him up before we go on the walk.
Interesting, yeah.
It's because I shouldn't treat it like
a treat.
Yeah.
Right.
I should be treating it like
going to work.
It's work time. Come on. We got to go work. And with Bandit, I'll end up, me and Sarah do this bit where after we get home from a walk, we'll go like, Bandit, did you want to go inside or something? Or we'll just like act like we're not paying attention to him or like we've gotten distracted. And we'll just like do that until he starts barking at us because he gets angry that like we're not going inside yet.
Mm-hmm.
And he'll just start going, whoa, 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 whoa. And it's really funny and cute. But like now that I'm reading this, I'm realizing he kind of thinks he's the boss a little bit.
Oh, because he says open the door and you open the door.
He's like demanding that I open the door. And I'm basically telling him like, I'm not going to open the door until you ask me to open the door.
Right. So you're making him the initiator.
Yeah. And it's just and I haven't been doing it lately, but it's a fun bit that I've done many times.
Yeah, that's really funny.
That I now regret. And I'm now seeing it in Bandit more and more. Like, oh no, he kind of thinks he's the boss in a lot of cases. Like he'll start like he'll like go out the door. He'll always try to like run out the door before Jackson does, and he like tries to put himself before Jackson in a lot of cases. And I've now been trying to like, if he, I've been telling them to like wait before they go inside, and he struggles with it a lot. As soon as I let Jackson in, because Jackson will become calm quicker than Bandit will, I'll let Jackson in, and then Bandit will like grumble and like run in anyway if he can. Last night he literally ran in and like hid behind a chair so I couldn't put him back outside before he could come back in. I had to hunt him down a little bit.
Yeah. Well, good for you.
Yeah, I'm trying to do better with it, and I guess I need to start walking them in the morning too, but man, it's a lot of time.
Yeah, it is. You don't have a bicycle, do you?
No.
Maybe that's the move.
I could get a bicycle. I'll think about that. But yeah, I definitely have not been handling the beginning and ending portions, at least, of walks correctly. It should be, we're going to work, and we're not going to work until you can chill out, until you're calm and you can sit down without your energy being wild, then we're not going.
Right.
And I'm going to go in the door first. I'm going to go out the door first. It needs to be like that.
Right.
You should not allow your dog to whine due to being separated from you, which is another thing that me and Sarah have like let happen a lot of times. Because Bandit will, if we like go somewhere in the car and Bandit's with us and one of us gets out of the car to go into the store, Bandit will like freak out the whole time that one person's gone. He'll like whine and bark even sometimes at the person. And we've treated that a little bit like it's cute. Like
it is.
Oh, he loves me. Oh, he just wants me to come back and get a little bamboo. But it's not very good.
Right.
He should be behaving better than that.
Right. Because it's not that he's saying it's going to be hard for me while you're gone. He doesn't even have the memory to say it'll be hard for me while you're gone. What he's saying is, hey, do what I want.
I demand you stay. No,
right.
Wait, I demand.
Yeah.
What are you doing? You're not following my demands.
Yeah, I'm in charge, but I'm not in charge?
Yeah. So, and also you should never let your dogs beg for food. Because you shouldn't be competing. You're the alpha, and you should not be competing with them for food. They should be staying as far away as you determine when you're eating. There should be like a clearly defined line. A lot of what you need to be doing is like having clearly defined lines with dogs and making sure they understand exactly where they can and can't be. Because it's when there's no clear lines,
they're always anxious.
They're always anxious
right.
Because no one's drawn clear lines around here.
Right.
And they can't do it.
I can't remember where Peterson talked about this, but he was saying that he'll have friends over sometimes who have little kids, and the little kids they'll be going around, and all the time they're like, oh no, don't do that. Oh, don't do that. Oh, don't do that. Oh, don't do that. But they don't set the boundaries for the kids. Hey, just so you know, like when we go over to a friend's house, you can do this, you can't do that. And then since they do all those things, the reason that the kids are anxious all the time is that they don't understand what they can and can't do. And if you take the time to teach them, then you're not anxious and they're not anxious. And people think that they're granting their kids greater freedom and therefore being better parents by not placing restrictions on them, when really kids want restriction.
Right. I mean, especially as a kid, you do kind of need those restrictions because there's a lot of options in the world.
Right.
So if you can narrow it down, there's still plenty of options within any spectrum with any narrowing down of what you can do. There's still a lot to explore there.
There, mathematically speaking, no matter how tight you draw any boundary, there's still infinite possibilities within that boundary.
Yeah.
So yeah, they don't care. All you can do is paint. Oh, I can paint anything in the universe? Right.
All right.
Right.
Yeah. That was all the notes that I had on the book. But yeah, I love Cesar Milan. I love the way that he thinks. I love the way that he thinks about the dogs. Oh, one more thing I wanted to share about like the way that he does a lot of rehabilitation for dogs that don't understand how to be calm submissive is that he has this place called the Dog Psychology Center in LA somewhere, and it's got a bunch of acreage there, and he had at one time 65 dogs there. And so when he had a problem dog that would be like aggressive or dominant in its home situation, he would bring it to the pack and just introduce the dog to the pack, and just to make the dog understand what it is to function in a successful pack. Mm-hmm. So a lot of these dogs that would be there would be ones that are going to be there for a couple weeks or for a month, just so that they can get totally synced up with everyone. Because he believes that it makes it a lot easier in order to correct the uneven energy of a dog is by having them around a bunch of dogs that all have a totally even energy. It doesn't take long before you even out right with them, because you can't function in that group. And he'll get these dogs to like start running with him and with the rest of them. And then, so he rehabilitates them in that way by putting them in an ocean of well-behaved dogs. Right. And then he can bring them home with an understanding of how to be in a calm, submissive state. And so long as that person is willing to commit to being calm and assertive all the time around the dog, right, shit can go great from there.
Right.
Yeah.
That's cool. That sounds like a great method for rehabilitating teens. Like,
sure.
Because I've heard that it can be a real disaster when a lot of teens with antisocial tendencies end up getting put in like rehabilitative, or man, what do you call those freaking camps? You know, the bad kid camps. Like, they end up sending a bunch of kids with antisocial tendencies to these camps together.
Oh,
and it's
yeah.
like, it's not the opposite, but
they'll just cut and do drugs together.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. But if you could somehow create an environment where a bunch of kids who function very effectively as a team have a couple kids with antisocial tendencies introduced into the pack, right? See if they can sync up with that pack. Yeah. And now they've learned how to be a part of a successful little consensus reality, and they can maybe participate in some other ones too.
Yeah, that's a good idea. But then you'd have to have a bunch of kids that are willing to, a bunch of like healthy kids that are willing to take in this crazy kid.
Right. Yeah. You'd have to do it like as a program, as a team building program for a football team, for example. Like, you guys are going to take on a community service project, and what it is we got a couple of kids who don't know how to make friends. They don't know how to work with others well. You know, they can be kind of shitty, and here's the deal. They're going to be shitty to you, and you're going to put up with it, and you're going to work with them until they can get along with you well, and then you've done your job, and you'll change that person's life, and it'll make you guys a stronger team as well. Like, a program like that maybe could work.
Yeah, I like that idea. And like a lot of the stuff that Cesar does, like I said earlier, like totally applies to people. It feels like you look around, everybody's kind of crazy. All the humans are kind of crazy too.
Right.
And how many of them are running?
Right.
Not very many.
Right.
And like it feels like it's very likely that a lot of the same problems that the dogs are having is what's going on with us too.
Right.
And we're all sort of pack, herd, traveling together, tribe animals.
Yeah.
We're the same kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we also for different reasons live in a context where the concept of the hierarchy is underappreciated. Like, instead of people being like, yeah, you know, I go to a martial arts school and I'm only a yellow belt, and the green belts and purple belts help me out, and I don't even really talk to the black belts, but I'm in the hierarchy and I'm happy to be there and everything. Like, instead of that, there's a lot of like, we're all like, everybody within a company is equals. Like, yeah. I just started working at an after school program, and it is a little bit like all of the students and the adults just feel like they're all on a level playing field, and everybody is a little bit anxious. Mm-hmm. It feels like that to me, and it feels like the students, like, the facilitators of the program, like, from before I started, they're like, I don't really know what these students are, like, interested in. I'm like, what kind of workshop should we do? Like, let's give them something badass. They're like, I don't really know what they're interested in. Like, they want to, like, talk about drama and, like, teenager shit. They want to eat hot chips. And
The kids love eating hot chips.
they want to eat hot chips and talk about drama. I'm like, all right, let's see. Like, let's really figure this out. I wrote out a survey with like 28 workshop ideas. And like, I would say this is a weird statistic, but at least 3/4 of kids were down for 3/4 of the ideas. Like the students were like, yeah, I was like meditation. They're like, yeah, that'd be interesting. Then I'm like kickboxing. They're like, yeah, that'd be fun. And then I'm like, let's go do a field trip to a recording studio. They're like, yeah, that'd be dope. And then, even like things that weren't as like exciting, like, nutrition, like, do you want to learn how to make a healthy, affordable meal for yourself? And they're like, one student, bro, dead ass. He looked at me, he goes, bro, I've been wanting to eat healthier. I don't know how.
Wow.
Like, oh, so nobody told you, hey kid, shut the hell up and let me tell you how to eat. Right. It's like, well, what do you want to eat? I don't know. Well, what should I eat? I don't know. What do you want to eat? They don't want hot chips, dude. Bro, I looked at that kid. I was like, the snacks that they feed you at this program are not food. They're drugs. Like, this is not real. Yeah. And they were excited about all that shit. And it reminded me that modern or postmodern or whatever we are, humans are craving participation in a successful and stable hierarchy, regardless of their position in it.
Yeah, we all want to be in a healthy pack.
Right. Because if you're the bottom guy in a hierarchy or the top guy in a hierarchy, if it's stable and consistent, you have equal protection by that hierarchy. Right. If someone goes and attacks that hierarchy, you have equal protection within it. Well, maybe in certain situations, the lower ranking people are put in more dangerous positions, I guess. But still, it's like you're a part of a hierarchy that's exactly as successful as the one that I'm a part of. And in that sense, we are equals. But you're the guy. Yeah. I'm not the guy. That people are secure like that.
Totally. Cesar had a definition of leadership that I really liked. He says leadership is protection and direction.
Fuck yeah. That's
sick, so true.
Bro, that's sick.
Yeah. They're like, we need someone that has their shit together so we can keep us out of danger and tell us where to go.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I like that.
Yeah. People are not getting direction, and neither are dogs.
No.
Well.
So if you have dogs, try to give them direction. Try to be the boss that they want you to be. Mm-hmm. And I suppose a lot of this is all negotiable. You know, like you can't. A lot of Cesar's rules are far too hard to follow. No one's gonna not pet a puppy for 2 weeks. That's crazy.
Yeah.
But if you can, try to be at least calm and assertive with your dogs, and try to always be on, and because that's what they want. They want you to be in charge. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Do you have any thoughts that you wanted to share? Any questions?
No.
Cool.
Love it.
Night school.
Night school.